Okay, cool. So I'm having to move out of my house because I can't afford rent. So I'm moving into my parents' property. But one time I couldn't afford rent either, and I was driving down the highway to try and go get help from social services, and the hood of my car smashed into my windshield and shattered it. So I pulled over, and this lady behind me pulled over and comes out. Turns out I happen to know her. So she helps me get to the social services office, and I'm calling my dad, and he's like out of state or out of town. And as I'm there, this other lady overhears me, and she's like, I'll call AAA and have them tow your car for free. What's your address? So they gave me a ride home, towed my car for free. A couple of days later, my friends called me, and they're like, hey, let's go out. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't go out. I can't even get to work. My car is completely wrecked. The windshield's wrecked. I can't even make rent. I don't know how I'm going to fix this. So sorry, guys. And they're like, hey, you know what? We just ran into some cash, and we want to help you. So they paid for my car. They got me a rental, and they paid for rent for me that month. You want to know something? If the hood of my car hadn't flown up and shattered my windshield, none of that would have happened. I wouldn't have gotten any help, and I probably wouldn't have been able to pay rent that month because I never would have told them that, hey, I can't pay rent. Sorry, I can't go out. I'd have been like, sure, let's go out. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, like, you know what? Me moving into my parents' house at 30 is going to be the best thing that's ever happened to me. It feels like right now I'm pulling over on the side of the road with a shattered windshield. My life sucks, but you know what? Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be great. It doesn't matter. We're going to be fine. We're all going to be fine.
Just move back in with your parents. People say that like it's a solution that's available to everyone, but not everybody has parents that they can live with. Not everybody has parents that have the space. And honestly, there's some people who are already living back with their parents who are still struggling. So I don't think the question is whether or not people are willing to make sacrifices. I think it's about why so many people feel like they're already making sacrifices and still not able to get ahead.
Have you noticed how many grown adults are quietly moving back in with their parents? Not kids fresh out of school, people in their 30s and 40s, people with careers. Life got expensive enough that the only way to stay afloat is to give up their own place and move back home. Let's take a look.
I moved back in with my parents at the age of 32, and I've been here for the last 2 years. And I just want to be real about what that felt like because it's not easy. I'd been a business owner, I had employees, I had a whole identity built around being the woman who was building something. And then one day, I'm back in my parents' house trying to figure out how to rebuild my life without losing my mind in the process. And the ego hit from that was very real. But here's what I decided. I could do one of two things, and I could scramble to keep up appearances, go get an apartment, act like everything was fine. I could keep spending money that I didn't have just to feel like I was still that girl, or I could be real with myself and make the smart move, even if it was the humble one. And I chose real. I moved back home. I enrolled in my master's program. I kept working in lending. I kept showing up for my kids, and I kept my head down for the last 2 years while I've been rebuilding from the inside out. No big highlight reels, no crazy posts, some updates, but mainly work. And here's what I can tell you about this quiet period. It's been the most important 2 years of my life because I've been able to stop performing and actually start building and really living. I stopped worried about how it looked, and I've been focusing on where I'm going. And now I'm almost done with my degree. My finances are starting to move. I'm turning 34 soon. I feel more clear than I've ever felt and more intentional than I ever did when I looked successful on the outside, right?
What a lot of people don't understand is that group economics is probably the foremost best way for you to get your life together, not ever be under any financial duress or pressure, and to really even take risks. When you want to do something, in order to be able to do it, you can't have a whole bunch of stuff on your back preventing you from being able to get there. And I don't understand why so many people are looking to move out, and we got this stigma that's attached to us, because really this is only supposed to be even applicable to men. Once you get past a certain age, maybe say 29, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and you get married or you get into a relationship or something like that, then we can start having that conversation. But even in those situations, I don't see no point in moving out as long as everybody is productive. But when I see women that are trying to get out too early and they leave from under the covering of their parents or whatever, their father or whatever like that, I see them heading down a pathway that's going to be really destructive, because I'm trying to figure out, what do you gain? What do you gain by going out and spending extra money to try to convince people that you are successful, or to try to, you know, create a highlight reel? What do you gain by, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I see a lot of women actually moving back with their parents. I see a few guys, not many, and I see a lot of women that are moving back with their parents. So whereas a couple years ago, where we had a lot of conversation around the idea that women were the ones that were buying all of the homes, they getting rid of them homes. They saying that we don't even want to live in these homes no more. We don't want to do the maintenance. We don't want to do none of that. And I just want to get my finances together, and I want to live a softer life while waiting.
I keep seeing videos of people from other states wanting to move to California, Southern California. So they'll ask, like, realistically how much they should be making so they can live comfortably here. I'm in California. And, you know, I'm reading through the comments and everybody's like, oh, as like a single person, you know, no kids, whatever, you're probably going to want to make anywhere from 100K to like 120. And I'm like, yeah, that probably sounds about right, because California's fucking expensive, right? And then I'm like, you guys are making 100K? Like, I don't make anywhere close to that. Like, am I just significantly underpaid? I've lived in California all my life. I live in Orange County, and obviously it's very expensive here. So, I guess I should be getting a second job.
This is a PSA for all of the privileged, rich, wealthy Americans. Hi, my name is Bridget. I'm 32 years old. I work full-time. And my paycheck does not give me enough to even get the bare minimums, okay? I had a savings account and I just had to use about half of it just to get by until my next paycheck. Okay, and the reality of that is, once my savings is gone, I don't have a crutch. I don't have any more crutches. And the stress of going grocery shopping, y'all, I'm at Aldi, okay, which is quite literally probably one of the cheaper grocery options. And the way that I have to pinch my pennies just to make sure I have enough food until the next paycheck is quite literally wild. So to all of my single humans out there, you're doing amazing. And, you know, we're a one income family. My fur babies don't work. I wish they did. I wish there was an opportunity. But what are we supposed to do? Like, when is enough enough? Because this kind of living is unsustainable. Unsustainable. Meanwhile, y'all are out here driving your Teslas and your Cybertrucks and your G-Wagons. Y'all, I'm in a Chevy Equinox, okay? And I'm starting to think I need to trade it in, because I can't afford life anymore. When is enough enough? I would love to know. I would absolutely love to know. It's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. I have a college degree. I am overqualified for my job. I am severely, severely underpaid. What are we supposed to do? What's the answer? Because I think the next step for me, I'm gonna have to look into food stamps, and I bet you my salary is above the threshold. But obviously, I'm $85.26 away from being in the negative. What are we supposed to do? How am I supposed to buy groceries for 2 weeks with $85, only to have 26 cents left in my bank account? When is enough enough?
There's a quiet shame people carry when they have to move back home as an adult. But this isn't about failure. It's about a math problem that stopped working, and it's happening to millions of capable, hard-working people right now.
The stigma associated with moving back in with your parents, moving back to your childhood home or anything like that needs to absolutely get in the bin. Because you want to tell me, in this economy, people are doing fine when they're being made redundant left, right and centre, diving through their savings because they cannot afford to live. Yeah, this is my story. This is literally my story. Then having to move back home because what is job seekers allowance? £90 a week. I don't even know what universal credit is. I don't even know what I would have been entitled to being jobless, X amount left of my savings, very little, having to move back home. Now living back home to rebuild my financial stability, rebuild my life as a whole after it got absolutely fucked in the arse. Like, sorry, there's no nicer way of saying it. There's no nicer way of saying it. And then you want to put blame and shame on me that as a 30-year-old, well, I'm 31 now, you're not doing this and you're not having babies. Why are you not having babies? I can't afford to live for myself, but I'm supposed to bring a little baby up. Yeah, sorry, I actually can't. The more I talk about it, the more infuriating it gets. Because also, when I talk about it on socials, whether it's an article or here on TikTok, there's always someone that's like, well, you should be grateful. You should be grateful that you have a home to go back to. That you have somewhere. Yeah, of course, I'm freaking grateful to be able to have that safety net. But it doesn't mean that society as a whole should be putting people in these situations to begin with. Like, oh my gosh, it's like you're not allowed to complain about something because it impacts someone else. Like, oh my god. I don't know, it's just a really tough subject whenever you talk about something that's a struggle for you, that actually, no, you're just supposed to be grateful that you have a home to go back. Of course I'm freaking grateful to have a home to go back to. Of course I am, that's a given, but I'm frustrated at the system that I'm stuck in, where I'm trying to rebuild, watching people get married, have babies and babes. I don't have the money for that. I don't have the funds because my life got fucked. And then there's all this blame on me and what I did wrong, and that it's not the job market, and it's not that you got dumped and screwed over and financially fucked in the ass. No, it's all on you. Like, I share my struggles because I know it helps other people. It's also somewhat therapeutic to me. But equally, it's because I know that I will get out of this. I always get out of sticky situations. Where you're at, you are not stuck. That is my message. And yeah, I'm back home. I do not give a shit in terms of how that looks to other people. Obviously, I care. Obviously, I wish I had my own place. I wish I could afford a dog. I wish I could do all these things, but I can't right now. But I am grateful to have a roof over my head. Absolutely. But do I wish that I could be independent, be back in my own flat, be doing my own thing and be able to afford it and not have to worry about the lack of job security? Absolutely. But do I care how that looks to someone else that might say, you know, a 22-year-old looking at me and be like, you're 31 and you live at home? You live at home? Because that might not be the trajectory of life that you think you're supposed to be on, but guess what? That's my reality. That's my reality. And I don't give a shit what someone would think of me for living back home, especially now that it's so normalized. And yeah, there's probably people that are like, I can't believe that. Like, I've got a friend that's married, has her own house, and has literally got another baby on the way. She's got 2 kids, essentially. We're living worlds apart, but we have very different stories. Where some people are at is where they're at, and where you're at is where you're at. Like, that's all that can be said, and you're allowed to be annoyed at where you're at. Even if it is, you know what, I'm healthy, I have a roof over my head, I'm going to make it work. You're still allowed. 2 things can coexist where I'm not exactly where I want to be, I'm not going to dwell on it, but I'm also not going to let people put me down for where I am. I don't know. I hope that makes sense, but a lot of us are moving back home because we're realising it's a struggle. It's a struggle, and I'm especially talking to people that have been made redundant, been put in situations that they weren't expecting, and it does make you move a bit backwards in life. Breakups that happen, financial stresses, financial intertwined messes with partners that then fuck up, and you've got to untangle everything. That is the kind of stuff that results in you being moved back home, and or in with a friend, or house sharing, or whatever it looks like for you. I'm not going to let someone sit there and tell me that I'm doing life wrong. I am where I am, but I'm not going to be stuck here, and you won't either, and that's fact. But it really gets to me when people are like, you're supposed to be having babies and you're supposed to be getting married. Babes, I cannot afford it.
For most of them, it comes down to rent. One income simply can't cover a place anymore, not with everything else stacked on top. Moving home isn't a choice, so much as the only door still open.
1 in 3 of young adults ages 18 to 34 live at home with their parents in the United States of America. That is insane. Let me read off the top 5 states that has the highest percentages of young adults who live at home with their parents still. Coming in at number 1 is New Jersey, 44.1%. Second is Connecticut, 41.3%. Third is California, 39.1%. Fourth is Maryland, which I'm not surprised by because I live in Maryland, so it makes sense. Maryland is 38.5%, and Delaware is 37%. That's absolutely insane. There's a few reasons why there's been a stark increase of young adults staying at home for such longer periods of time. And the major one is, of course, housing affordability. There is just simply not enough affordable housing, whether we talk about renting or purchasing or buying a mortgage. Okay. For two, wages have not kept up with cost of living at all. So that's why a lot of people are staying at home for longer periods of time. And then if you think about the student loan crisis, especially now with all of the changes with student loans and people being forced to pay back their loans right now, people do not have the extra income to do that. So if they're being forced to pay the student loans, some people are choosing to go back home so that they can afford to pay for their other bills. Don't even get me started on childcare costs if you have kids. Don't even get me started. Childcare costs are absolutely horrendous. And most of these major cities, like where I live, childcare costs at least $1,500 to $2,000 a month.
So I know I can't be the only one, but like me and my family are broke, but we're not like super broke. We're like broke enough to be living paycheck to paycheck and to rely heavily on our WIC card and heavily on me couponing, but we're not broke enough to be on food stamps. And that honestly kind of leaves us in like an awkward place because we definitely could use food stamps and that would help us out like a fuck ton, but we don't qualify for it because we make $500 too much every single year, gross pay. So instead, we rely on our WIC card. I coupon off of 11 different couponing apps, and I do physical coupons also. And every now and then, once or twice a month, we go to the food bank. And I'm not making this video for sympathy. I'm not making this for money. I'm making this video because this is how most Americans are currently living. 64% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck right now.
In a lot of homes, it's 3 generations now under one roof. Grandparents, parents, grandchildren, all pooling what they have just to keep everyone housed. It's how families survived generations ago, and it's quietly coming back.
Okay, so let's talk about the American dream. Because whatever some people think it is, I promise you, it is not. And I mean that in a structural way. For most of American history, the dream was sold as something pretty straightforward, right? Work hard, follow the rules, stay out of trouble. And things will slowly get better. Not perfect, but better. A house, stability, safety, something to pass down, right? And even though we know that dream was never equally available, there was at least the promise that it existed somewhere. That promise is gone. The American dream is no longer about thriving. It's about not falling. People aren't dreaming about wealth. They're dreaming about staying housed. They're not chasing opportunity. They're trying to avoid catastrophe, medical debt, rent spikes, layoffs. One interaction with the wrong system at the wrong time. The dream is shrunk. For millennials and Gen Z, the dream looks like this. A job that doesn't disappear overnight. Health insurance that actually covers something. Not being one emergency away from ruin. Being left alone by systems that feel increasingly aggressive. The American dream used to rely on a belief in predictability, that if you did X, Y would follow. That rules mattered. That the system, while flawed, it had limits, though. That's what we were told. That belief has cracked, wide open. Because more and more people are realizing that the protections they assumed were permanent were actually conditional, based on race, class, status, proximity to power. And once that illusion breaks, the dream can't function the same way. You can't sell optimism to people who are watching enforcement expand, accountability shrink, and consequences land unevenly. You can't tell people to just comply when compliance hadn't guaranteed safety for a long time and is now starting to fail people who always thought it would. So what replaces optimism, right? Anxiety, caution, hypervigilance. People don't imagine a better future now. They plan defensively. They save differently, move differently, speak differently. The American dream didn't disappear. It mutated. And for some, especially the wealthy, the old dream still exists. Home ownership, asset growth, insulation from instability. But for most people, the dream is smaller, quieter, more fragile. And that's why nobody's breathing easier. Because the American dream used to tell people where they were headed. Now it just tells us what we're trying to avoid, and that is a very different country to live in.
And for the younger ones, there's a heavier feeling underneath it. Many have quietly given up on ever owning a home of their own. When the basics of an adult life feel out of reach, moving home stops feeling temporary and starts feeling permanent.
I need to have a vent session for a second about the state of affairs in this country. So I have two adult children. One is 18 going on 19 and the other one is 21. My 18-year-old is working currently as an HVAC apprentice and working on getting certified, but he's making $16 an hour, which I live in a small to mid-sized Missouri town, so that's pretty typical around here. Wages are, low compared to a lot of places, but so is the cost of living. But he would also not like to be living at home with mom forever. He's more of an independent, autonomous person, so apartment living is not for him at all. He wants a place where he can have his truck and his dirt bikes and be able to work on motors and have the freedom to do what he wants with the place and also be able to have all of his stuff. And at this point, honestly, renting a house would cost more than a mortgage payment anyway, but he's been looking for houses and just trying to figure out what he can afford and what he can do. And he found this place that was only $125,000, which is dirt cheap around here. That just doesn't exist anymore, but it had no basement. It was on a slab foundation, I think, and probably needed some work, which he is naturally talented at that stuff. He works in HVAC. He's very mechanically inclined. He can do this stuff. So he's not afraid of a fixer-upper. Found out that the main reason it was priced so cheap is because it was in a flood zone. So it was a no anyway. But keep in mind, $125,000 house in this economy. And when we looked up to see if he did a 5% down payment on this thing with, your insurance and PMI and taxes and everything, his payment would still be $1,100 a month for a cheap piece of crap house. And just the look of absolute dread on his face when he realized how completely unaffordable and unattainable it is for him to be able to buy a house and live on his own. Now, my oldest son just turned 21. He's been waiting to turn 21 because he wants to get into the cannabis industry. And it's just like the alcohol industry, where if you want to be a brewer or a bartender, you have to be 21 in order to do it. So this past week, Thursday, he interviewed for a job with a grower. And just a couple of days ago, he was offered the position and officially accepted it. And in that time, less than a week, we decided to start a war with Iran. And so when he interviewed for the job, gas prices were around $2.50 a gallon where I'm at, and now they are already at $3 a gallon and climbing. So just in the time between when he interviewed for this job and when he accepted this job, gas prices have gone up 50 cents a gallon, and they're not done climbing yet. And this is an issue because this job, there's a lot of dispensaries here in town where if he had, ended up there, he'd probably be a little bit better off. But this was the job opening that was available at the time for him to get into the industry. And it is a farm, which is 30 miles up the interstate from where we live. So now he is going to be driving one way to work 30 miles at a time when gas prices are going through the roof, because we decided it was a good idea to start a completely unwarranted, unjustified, and unnecessary war with Iran. And I'm now sitting here thinking about my own situation, where my own currently hourly wage is, and considering if I was their age, if I was just starting out. So thinking about buying the same house that I live in right now at its current value, at current interest rates, with the same percent down payment that I paid for this house back in 2017. And I realized that my payment would be double what it currently is. And I, as a 40-year-old woman who has been working for 24 years of my life, could not afford this place on my own. At 40 years old, I would need a roommate in order to live in this very modest, 1,300 square foot, 1968 ranch style home. It's not a fancy house by any stretch. It's what most people would consider to be essentially a starter home by today's standards. And I could not afford it on my own on my current wages. So my question is, how the hell are we expecting these young kids to do it? For someone to start out, even in my area, in rural Missouri, they would have to make $30 an hour in order to be earning a living wage, in order to live on their own and support themselves without the help of a spouse or a roommate, just for a single person to live and make it on their own, to be able to afford a vehicle payment, vehicle insurance, a mortgage or rent payment, and all of the utilities and groceries and cell phone bills and stuff that go along with just living your life. That's no fun stuff. It's just to live. They would need to make $30 an hour. Meanwhile, we have a government that is more interested in starting wars and harassing other countries and harassing immigrants that are living in this country than they are with their own people, than they are with helping the working class in any way, shape, or form with any kind of meaningful legislation or reform. We have a do-nothing Congress that is sitting on their hands and doing absolutely nothing to help any of the working class people. I'm mad about it for myself, but I'm even more mad about it for my children. Something needs to change. Something's got to give. And frankly, at the midterms, like, it would be great if the Democrats are able to take over, because at least they'll do something to stop the nonsense that is happening in the executive branch that is going on unchecked. But are they going to do anything to actually help the working class people? At the end of the day, even the Democrats are doing the absolute bare minimum to be able to claim that they are for the working class, because they, right along with the Republicans, are taking money from wealthy campaign donors, and any policy, any legislation that they pass ultimately is going to help them and not us. So where does this end? How far does this go before we, the people, cannot afford to live no matter what age we are?
But there's something to hold on to here too. Families are pulling together, splitting bills, sharing meals, helping with the kids. In the middle of something hard, a lot of people are rediscovering that surviving together beats struggling alone.
Get ready with me while I talk about how awful the New Jersey housing market is and how I don't think it's ever going to improve in our lifetime unless something terrible happens. So, I'm a realtor in Central Jersey, which does exist in Princeton. And because I'm a realtor and a millennial, I work firsthand with people who are trying to find homes. And the crazy thing is, the average home buyer now today is like, I think the age just got bumped up to like 45 years old is like the average age of a first-time home buyer, which is wild considering it's probably beyond the age that most people are like getting married, settling down with kids, although there's some that do at that age too, but it's definitely not the majority. So it tells you that nobody can afford a house, which I know firsthand, nobody can afford a house. So the reason, this looks so wild doing it like this. The reason why, if you are somebody who's been trying to buy a house in the last few years and even just few months, and you're trying to buy a single family detached, like standalone house, it is still so damn competitive. I can't speak for all of New Jersey, but I know it's this way in North Jersey. I don't know if it's like this in South Jersey or if South Jersey's cooled off a bit. It's definitely like this in the Princeton area and the rest of Central Jersey, and especially Monmouth County and areas down the shore. It's just absolutely bananas. And there's a few reasons, right? Like, you know, everybody keeps posting about Netflix and how Netflix is coming to New Jersey. And yeah, that's true and great. And I'm sure that will increase property values, especially around there. But the real issue that nobody's talking about is that there are never going to be neighborhoods built again. And that's for a couple of reasons too. So New Jersey is the most densely populated state. There are more people per square mile than any other state. And we also happen to be one of the most populated states, which is kind of crazy considering how small we are. So the reason why we're not going to have any more neighborhoods, one, there's no land left to build on, not anything desirable at least. And number two, which is the big one, is the affordable housing laws. And I've spoken about affordable housing before. I'm pro affordable housing. I am not pro the way that it is right now, because the reason we will never have neighborhoods of single family houses that normal people can afford that aren't $2 million is because by law, builders have to build for every 4 units, they have to do one that's affordable, or like a certain percentage of those units has to be affordable, like a deed restricted affordable housing unit. So why do you think there's so many townhouses and condos going up? They're going to lose the least amount of money, the builders, by building these high density housing developments, calling it luxury, but then throwing the required affordable housing units in there. Now, everybody hates this. I don't know a single person that likes this, except for the fact that there are now more affordable housing units available, which is a good thing because we don't have enough. But this is not the way to go about it. So because of this, it's very competitive to buy single family homes, like detached single family homes. So if you live in what's considered like a forever home, and I consider a forever home in New Jersey, like your standard 4-bed, 2.5 bath with a basement, 2-car garage on like a 1/4 acre or more lot. That is the typical like forever home for most people in New Jersey. That forever home now is over $1 million in just about every desirable part of New Jersey. I mean, that's nuts. Like that's crazy. for anybody who didn't buy before 2022, I mean, you have to be making a lot of money to be affording these houses, even with help from parents. Because I know a lot of people get help from their parents in buying homes, which, like, no shame. I'm jealous. I wish I had the help. The reason this bothers me so much as an agent is, I mean, there's a couple reasons, but for one, my buyer clients can't get accepted on a motherfucking house. Like, what the fuck? We put in offers on so many houses. I mean, I had clients that put in offers literally for like 3 or 4 years before they finally found something. 3 or 4 years. And it's not that they weren't competitive. It's just that the other competition was so crazy. And I see it on the listing side too, because I work on the listing side just as much as I'm a buyer's agent. And, you know, there were times I would list a house at a price that there was literally no comps to support. Like, I'm telling the sellers, like, look, I don't know where you got this price from. I don't know if we're going to sell for it. There's definitely no comps to support, you know, the appraisal. And we would get an offer well above what we listed for with a waived appraisal because the buyer had enough money to cover a gap if it appraised low and put down a higher down payment. I mean, it's just absolutely insane and hard to compete with. And I can't speak for all of New Jersey, but in my experience, it's not investors buying the homes. Like, it's actual people with money buying the homes. Just throwing that out there, because I know that's happening all over the country. I just don't think that's the driving factor of the New Jersey housing crisis. The issue is that they stopped building houses after the market crashed in 2008, because that was after the McMansion boom. And anybody who grows up in New Jersey remembers, you know, in like the late 90s, early 2000s, all these McMansion developments went up. So many of them. I mean, it was just a huge housing boom in New Jersey. And then the market crashed, and then a lot of homes just sat foreclosed for a long time and empty. And so builders, you know, there was no reason to build with inventory so high. But the issue is, once things started to balance out, I guess, you know, after maybe 2012, that would have been the time to start building some more houses. But they didn't. And all at the same time, there was no affordable housing being built because the governor at that time, Mr. Chris Christie, did not enforce the Mount Laurel doctrine and requiring builders to build affordable housing units. And there was just no houses being built. So it's like both were an issue. At this point, I feel like most people my age, I'm 33, if you don't already own a house, I don't know if it's going to be possible. And I'm not saying that to be negative. I'm saying it because knowing the income required to afford one of these forever homes, it's just getting less and less attainable. And sure, I know lots of people who make a lot of money at my age or a little bit older than me, even younger than me. There's plenty of people who make a lot of money. But I'm not stupid enough to think that that's the majority. It's not. It's not. So unless boomers start leaving their millennial kids houses, which honestly you should, right? Let's advance those inheritances. Our generation's going to be living in apartments forever. And then you wonder why nobody's having kids. I was lucky enough that we were able to buy one of these forever homes in 2021. And it was by chance. By chance. We were not even planning to buy when we did. We were like locked into a 2-year lease. We still had like 9 or 10 months left on this lease. And, you know, because I'm an agent, I saw this house pop up and I'm like, we need to go see this. I think we should go see this house. But when we saw this house, we're like, oh my God, we need to try to get this house. And of course, even then it was a bidding war, multiple offers, you know, the whole nine. And we somehow won. We were not the highest price either, which, you know, rare, but it happens. And we ended up buying this house, and we locked in because it was the end of 2021. It was December 2021 that we closed. We locked in at like 3.25% interest rate, 3.25. The next month, interest rates jumped to 4.5. And at that point, we would not have been able to afford the house. Like, that was the difference in affording this house versus not. Today, my house is worth between $1.1 and $1.2 million. We could not afford that, not comfortably. I'm sure we could be house poor and afford it. I don't even think we could afford it, to be honest. Who am I fucking kidding? In my dreams, we could afford it. We can't afford it. We could not afford to buy my house today. Then I think ahead to my kids My kids are young. What are houses going to cost when they're my age? If they want to have kids in a family, if people are still even having kids at that point. I'm sure they won't be because it's going to be so unaffordable. And I guess this is really just a rant because I don't have anything constructive to add to the issue. I don't have any solutions, or any realistic solutions at least. I have plenty of idea solutions. But all that to say, I would rather be poor in New Jersey than rich somewhere else.
When grown adults with careers are quietly moving back home just to stay afloat, that says something about how much has changed. If this is where you are right now, there is no shame in it, and you are not alone. Millions of people are making the same quiet decision to survive. Lean on your family, take the pressure off where you can, and keep taking small steps forward. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, please subscribe and hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next one.